All right, good morning, class. Today we're going to explore a little bit about switching circuits and the different types of devices we can utilize to switch a circuit. So what are we going to do, or what is required in order to be able to control a light fixture or a motor or something like that? We can use simple switches to control that, much like you have in your house. We have 4 types of switches on this switching circuits lab board that we'll use in our next lab. The 4 types of switches that we're going to utilize within this, there's a single pole, single throw switch. That's this guy here. He's mounted somewhere in one of these. Okay. The drawing for that guy would be basically, there's your symbol, single pole, single throw, meaning it's got a single line conductor coming to it and it only has one position for that toggle to move, open or closed. That's it. All right. The type of circuit that we can utilize for that would be just a simple circuit like this, where we have our single pole, single throw switch interrupting our line conductor. So this is our hot coming here, our switch leg leaving there, heading to our light fixture, and then out of our light we would return back to the source with our neutral. If this is an alternating current circuit. If it's DC, this could be our negative, switching the negative, coming over to our light fixture, coming back to positive on the 120 volt source there. All right, so that would be the use for a single pole, single throw switch. Okay, and then we would look at a 3-way switch or a single pole double throw switch. There's a symbol for it there. Here are the types of conductor, or the type of switch that we would use. We have 3 screws on this. We have a common, and then we have 2 traveler screws. So that would be the black one that I've indicated on here is the pivot point between these 2 positions that it can toggle between that brass there and the other brass on the other side. So this switch has the ability to switch in 2 different ways on a single pivot point. Okay? Purpose of that would be to actually connect it up into a circuit like this, a 3-way circuit, where we have our source. We have our first 3-way circuit connected up to our hot, or our first 3-way device connected up to our hot, and then we have 2 travelers. Okay, so these travelers connect up to the other 3-way switch over here, and then out of that 3-way switch we would then feed out to the light and then back to our source. So the purpose of this, with the way that I have it drawn, current could leave this source here, head up through that paddle, along this way back down there to the light, and then return back to home. Okay? If we were to switch this in either direction, then that light could turn on or off from 2 different locations. So that's the purpose of a 3-way circuit. It allows us to have the ability to switch between more than 1 location. Just 2 at a maximum. Okay? Lastly, or the next one we can deal with would be a 4-way switch. So that's your 4-way here. Okay. So this 4-way, we would utilize, it has 2 inputs and 2 outputs. Okay. But it's a double pole, double throw, meaning that on this particular point here, sorry, I'll just grab my pen. On that point there, we would have connection straight across to there, or if we switched the switch in the opposite direction, it would actually pivot down to the lower terminal down there. And simultaneously when that happened, this one would pivot from this point up to the top, so it almost go crisscross. Okay? So this allows us to connect it up to a circuit where we wanted to control a light from more than 2 locations. So now we could control it from 3 locations, similar to either a long hallway or maybe a stairwell where you enter the basement of your house. Okay, and you come up and you make connection, or sorry, you turn the light on, you hit the midpoint of the house and you can turn the light off, so you've left that area. Or if you're going to go up to the next set of stairs, you could turn the light on, come to the top of the stairs, turn the light off again. Okay, so in this case, the names we would give this, we would have our line 1 coming out, or our common. We would have a set of travelers leaving that first 3-way switch, heading to the inputs of the 4-way switch. In the outputs of the 4-way switch, we would have the other travelers heading to that next 3-way, or the last 3-way switch, and then we would have our switch leg that would come out, head to our load or our light fixture, and then return back to our source. Okay, so that's a common application of a four-way switch. Lastly, we have what's called a double pole single throw switch. That double pole single throw, it gives us the option for just disconnecting two line conductors from a load. Okay, it has no mid pivot points. In other words, it can only go in one position. That's why we call it single throw. In other words, we open or close it and that's it. These do not crisscross like the four-way switch. And what that does is it allows us to control a motor load with one toggle switch to disconnect both live line conductors heading out there. It's very important that we do that, because if we were to just put a single pole switch in here, connect up to that light or that load, okay, if that motor was off because this is open and this had a sure connection to it, then we run the risk of getting shocked out here, even though that motor is technically in the off position. So by the electrical code standards, we are required to disconnect all live conductors from a machine or whatever safely in order to prevent any sort of electrocution hazard. So by utilizing a double pole single throw switch, that's how we could accomplish this in a 240 volt circuit. So we have our line 1 heading out through that, coming along here to our motor, returning back through that other half of the switch, and then heading back to our line 2. Okay, so that switch, how it looks or appears, is something like this. Now please note that the difference, I know this is brown or a black compared to all the other ones were white, but the biggest difference with any switch that only has one way of either opening or closing, they will always be labeled on or off for the most part. Okay, either that or they have dots or a 0 on them. Okay, so that is a double pole single throw switch. In other words, one movement opens or closes a pair of line conductors. Okay, and that's where we're at. The next video I'll show you how we break down this switching circuits board.